Senior X. As you know, kids work awfully hard to do a culminating experience to really bring together their work at this high school, and we're some proud of this process and proud of Ellie's work. So Ellie has 20 minutes to share her story, and at 15 minutes we'll let you know that you have 5 more minutes. When we're done, we will have a chance for the panel to ask questions, and then we will ask everyone except the panel to leave, and we will talk about Ellie's presentation and whether she met the criteria for the senior exhibition here, and then we'll run and get you, and we'll have a conversation. Okay? So, and I think that there's probably time for you all to ask questions too. So, do you have any questions right now about the process, honey?
Nope.
Okay. So this is Ellie McGee. Welcome.
Right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ellie McGee, and this is my senior exhibition. So to start off, my central question is how can I combine my love of art, botany, and design, learn some new skills, and create a lasting product I can take with me to college. When this project was in its very early stages, I had a really hard time deciding exactly what I wanted to do. I have so many interests that span such a wide range of disciplines that I had so many ideas, but no idea which topic to choose. I am Wilderness Advanced First Aid certified, and I really want to get my Wilderness First Responder certification, so that was one of my ideas I considered, as well as working with Acadia Search and Rescue. To go along with my wilderness medicine idea, I also wanted to plan and execute a wilderness trip in northern Maine. Another idea I had was to draw 100 botanical illustrations of flora native to MDI as part of the Acadia National Park Centennial Celebration. I am also very interested in going into a medical profession, so I thought about interning at the hospital or with a midwife. And finally, I had the idea to make a quilt. So here are some definitions that here are some definitions of words I will be using frequently throughout this presentation. So Chewonki Semester School is a semester-long school for high school juniors in Wiscasset, Maine, with a focus on ecology of the Maine coast and environmental studies, which I attended first semester of my junior year. Photoshop is a design program on the computer used for art and graphic design. A repeating pattern is a square, usually around 8 inches by 8 inches, that is designed to repeat on fabric with no space in between each square. Spoonflower is an online company that prints custom design fabrics, which is where I got a lot of my fabric from. Block printing is carving into hard or soft linoleum with a sharp tool to make a design or stamp which can be used to print on paper or fabric multiple times. Piecing is a quilting term, which means simply sewing one piece of fabric to another piece. And a 12 by 12 block is a quilt square made of pieced fabric, and then blocks are sewn together to make a finished quilt. And sashing is strips of fabric sewn in between each block, used to make each block stand out more and provide an overall sense of unity. A border is the fabric sewn all around the edge. So my first ideas after I had chosen my topic were huge. I wanted to hand print all of my fabric, which just wasn't realistic. Being able to make a quilt out of entirely hand-printed fabric was about as likely as having a unicorn living in my bedroom, which is to say, very unlikely, especially when a lot of these printing techniques would be new to me. I was able to scale down some aspects of my project thanks to advice from Ms. Collins and my mentor. Speaking of, this is my amazing mentor, Hillary Hudson. She is a master quilter, physician's assistant, and like me, loves to be outside. She has been so incredibly helpful during this project, and I could not ask for a better mentor. These are examples of some of her beautiful work. So quilts are really expensive. I had to work on a budget, and I applied and got the Kristen Clint Arts Fund Scholarship for NDI Girls and Women in the Arts. I am incredibly grateful to have gotten this scholarship and feel very lucky to have made the quilt I really, really want to make, and it also gave me an idea for what applying for scholarships this spring would be like. After I received the grant, I was able to go to Fiddlehead Fabrics in Belfast and get my materials. I got fabrics in the 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, as well as black and white fabrics. I decided to stick to a simpler color scheme so my designs really stuck out. Before I took Ms. Slack's clothing instruction class this fall, I had never sewn before. I had, let alone quilted. I learned a lot in that class, but had to learn more to work on a project of this caliber. Before embarking on this journey, I read a lot of books about printmaking, pattern design, sewing, and quilting. My favorite book by far was G's Bend, The Architecture of the Quilt, which is in that stack over there, which I will talk about in a little while. One resource I used to print my fabric was Spoonflower. I had to learn how to make a repeating pattern in Photoshop with help from my mom, who is a Photoshop pro. Here are some examples of botanical drawings I uploaded to Spoonflower and printed onto fabric. Much of my inspiration for these drawings came from my time at Chilwaukee. We would go out once a week for a 4-hour field trip on the coast of Maine all over, and we would draw and write about plants we saw. I used block prints to print some of my fabric. I had done some block printing when I was younger, but haven't done really any since. That is me when I was 9, making kitty prints. And so I learned a lot about block printing. I learned about positive and negative space. I learned about color and distribution. And I made a series of pine cone and pine needle prints and those ginkgo prints as well. In the beginning, I really wanted to do a more traditional quilt with traditional blocks. These are some examples of more traditional blocks. However, when I tried sewing one, I realized how precise I had to be, and I am not a precise person. And so, I mean, I liked it, but not enough to want to do my whole quilt out of them. And so I then recalled my knowledge about the quilts of G's Bend. These quilts, sewn by slave descendants in Alabama, are more improvisationally pieced, and the fabrics usually are repurposed from clothing and other things. I was lucky enough to go see an exhibition in Boston of the G's Bend quilts, which all have their own feelings, styles, and personalities. The quilts of G's Bend are informed by community and span several generations. This is another example of an improvisationally pieced quilt. I felt like I had finally found my style, and the quilts of G's Bend, as well as this kind of modern improvisational quilting, were 2 of my main sources of inspiration. So this is the pattern Hillary and I worked out to make all my blocks come together. So each square with a circle in it would have more dark fabrics than light fabrics, and each square with a dash in it would have more light fabrics and dark fabrics, making kind of a checkerboard pattern, which you can kind of see in my quilt, though I use a lot of different fabrics. So we decided to do a 7-block by 7-block quilt, totaling 49 blocks with a center square that I would make special to me and provide a sense of unity throughout the whole quilt. And each square had to be 12.5 by 12.5 inches unfinished, because I had to have a 1/4-inch seam allowance around each side, so it could be 12 inches by 12 inches finished size. This is me piecing some of my blocks. I'm using improvisational techniques where you start from the middle and work outward. And so that was really fun because I could just kind of go until I knew I had more than 12.5 by 12.5 inches. Then I'd have to cut down my blocks to be 12.5 by 12.5 so I could sew them all together. And piecing the blocks took a really long time. And I was really excited about it, so it seemed to go by quickly, but I did have to spend hours and hours doing that. And this is me laying out my blocks, which was really exciting. I had finally finished all 49 of them. And it took a really long time to do that as well, because I really wanted a nice spread of patterns throughout, and I really wanted a nice spread of color throughout as well. And so once I had finished my layout, I numbered them and lettered them, kind of like a chessboard. So the one farthest to the left and on top would be A1, and then B1, C1, D1, and then D2, D3, D4, etc. And so once that was done, I had to go back to Fiddlehead Fabrics in Belfast to get more fabric because I had underestimated how much I needed, and decided that I did need sashing in between each block because they're all so complex, and I wanted it to be easier to look at. And the ladies who work at Fiddlehead were so helpful and so supportive, helping me figure out how much fabric I need to get, how much thread I need to get, what color thread to get, and what size batting to get, and what kind of batting to get, as well as Hillary. She was always only one text away. And so this is me sewing all of my blocks together, which was so exciting. This part took a long time because I had to be very, very precise about it. And like I said, I'm not a precise person, so it was kind of difficult for me. And this was the first time I really had to use pins to make sure everything lined up right. And so I had to be so precise because if I wasn't, then all the blocks would look kind of wonky and weird when I sewed them all together. And this is right after I had finished my quilt. I was so, so excited about finishing the top. And because so much of this project was printing the fabric itself, Hillary and I decided that my goal would be to have the top piece together by the time of this presentation. And so this is me making a mess of my dining room table yet again. And in that picture, I am piecing the back of my quilt, which is right here. I'm not done with that yet, but I'm so excited to finish it and to put everything together. And that picture is very loose inspiration I used to make this. Very, very loose. I really like the uneven stripes and the patterns all around, and I used almost every single fabric I used in the front to make my back, which kind of ties everything together. So some practical skills I learned during this project. I learned how to use Photoshop. I learned how to navigate it and kind of know the language of Photoshop. I learned how to sew, which was really exciting. I now can pretty much sew anything. Like, I can alter garments if I need to, and I can just make funny things, and it's just really fun. I can block print, which is just incredible and so fun, and I didn't realize how much I loved it until I picked it back up again. I learned about pattern design and distribution and spacing. I learned about color theory because all of my colors are primary colors. I had to make sure each was distributed evenly and went with the other colors I was using. I learned about time management. That was something that's been hard for me this semester. I am taking 2 AP classes, and doing this project while carrying an AP workload has been very difficult. But I feel like it has definitely been a huge learning experience for me. I have learned a lot about modern versus traditional quilting and kind of what I like. And I've come into myself and found my style. I've learned a lot about quilting terminology. And it's so much fun to talk to other quilters and be able to have a nice conversation with them without having to stop them every 2 seconds to be like, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? And so I kind of speak quilter now. I learned about grant writing, which is really great, and I will definitely be able to use some of those skills when I am applying for scholarships this spring when I'm going off to college. I learned about sewing machine maintenance and creative problem solving, because I have an old machine and sometimes things go wrong and like it'll squeak weird and I'll be like, oh God, what happened? And I'll have to trace the problem back to the source and like work out a tangle or something like that. So some things I learned about myself were that I will always love traditional fiber arts like knitting, embroidery, and sewing. I really love the social connection and community that comes out of these. Down there is a picture of a bunch of friends I had at Chwonky and myself in the back. We had just gone on one of our many yarn runs to the store, to the yard store in Bath, which is right near Wiscasset. And we all just love knitting together so much. And even after semester, we'll get together and we'll all knit together. And I think one of the best things about having a community and having friends and who love fiber arts is that you can do it together and you're not tempted to go pick up your phone because your hands are busy, and it allows for really open honest communication, and you get really close to people very quickly that way. So I love putting my own contemporary spin on traditional fiber arts. That is an embroidery piece I did in sophomore year, and as you can see, it's definitely not very traditional. I really like to put my own personality into things and kind of improvise. It's definitely a stress reliever for me. Even when I was at Chewonki and I was in the thick of my homework, I would sometimes take like a 5-minute knitting break to kind of de-stress. And even this year, as I was working on my project, I found it very helpful and a great way to kind of keep my stress levels down. I work really well under pressure, which I guess comes out of me always having been a procrastinator. But once there's a crunch for time, it kind of lights a fire for me, and I get a lot of things done, which is good and bad. I really love improvisational quilting and embroidery and even knitting. Sometimes I go without a pattern for anything, and it's just really fun to do that. And I know I will continue sewing no matter what, even if I become like a doctor, or if I go and follow my dream and go become like a secluded farmer in Iceland. I know I will always continue sewing and knitting and embroidering my little heart out. And I also know how to get over creative block, which is something important for all artists to be able to do, because sometimes when I was in the very early stages of designing this quilt, I would have to force myself to go out and draw and keep drawing until I found something I liked, which was hard sometimes. So back to my essential question, how can I combine my love of botany, art, and design, learn some new skills, and create a lasting product I can take with me to college? I can combine my love in many ways. Through block printing, illustration, written information, as well as realistic and more abstract interpretations of botanical designs. I managed to put these all together into one product because I learned about elements of design. I also put it onto a non-traditional surface, which was fabric, which I sewed together to make the product that I can take with me to college and beyond. So now I have to finish piecing the back of my quilt. Sew the top, batting, and bottom together. The batting is the squishy layer in between the top and bottom that makes it really cozy. I have to work with Hillary on her fancy quilting machine to quilt everything together, which makes the quilt more sturdy, as well as being a way to have even more designs on my quilt. And so here are some funny videos. The first one is me block printing. There we go. And so this is in the very early stages when I was still printing fabric. Block printing took a long time just because all of my prints were really small. Each one was about this big. And so it took a really long time, but I'm so happy with the way it turned out. And I probably will do a lot more block printing in the future. And all of these videos are put here because I had some technical difficulties and couldn't intersperse them throughout. And so this is when I was laying out all of my blocks on the floor, which was just so fun and really crazy to see all the work I had put into this. This is just a silly video of me right after I had finished piecing my quilt together. And then this is also a really silly video after I had finished piecing everything together and putting the border on. I look kind of crazy because I had been sewing for several hours and hadn't gotten up. And I was just so excited to get everything done. So thank you to Hillary for being just the best ever. You're the best mentor that I could ever have asked for. Miss Slack for teaching me how to sew. Miss Cullens for helping me reel in my ideas and helping me solidify exactly what I wanted to do. Miss Rowell for being a constant support for me. Patty and Michelle from Spruce and Gussie, as well as the Kristen Clint Arts Fund people for helping me apply for the grant and giving me the grant so I could do the project I really, really wanted to do. I'd love to thank my mom, who has been so supportive, my #1 fan for my whole life, and especially during this project. And thanks for teaching me about Photoshop. I was lost without you. Thank you to my grandmother, Cookie Horner, for being also just an amazing support and helping me through this project. The ladies at Fiddlehead Fabrics for being so helpful during my project and so nice. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah.
So let's see if the panel has any questions. I will start.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea? Well, when did you begin working on it? When did you?
I was drawing in September.
Yeah.
I started printing probably end of October. A lot of it came together in November and December. The very last part of it came together New Year's Day. Thanks, Hillary, for coming over. And I have been working on the quilt ever since.
You mentioned the center
Mm-hmm.
square being one that was significant, and I
Yeah.
was just wondering if you could explain that to us.
It's kind of just, I like it in a way. None of them really felt like they put everything together as well as that one did, and I really like the plus and kind of reaching out and connecting everything.
Is that particular one fabric that you purchased or blocked?
I purchased that one, but I designed this one, this one,
Yeah.
yeah, a whole bunch of them.
What was the biggest challenge you had?
Definitely time, and also in the beginning I had trouble finding times to meet with Hillary because we're both very busy, but time management has always been a struggle for me. So.
Do you think this helped with that a bit?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I love the slight irregularities, and then the sashing is so regular. I just love that contrast.
And feel free to come just check it out if you want to. Take a closer look.
Does anybody else?
I'd just like to make a comment. As you know, I'm a quilting as well, and one of the key things that is to make a good quilt is visual attraction and drawing your eye to different places, and it's constant. Every time I look at it, I see something.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Yes, ma'am.
This is kind of an odd question. What was your house like during this process? Like, where did you keep all of it? I want to know.
So I put it on the dining room table, and we had some struggles with that because my dad didn't want me to put it on the dining room table, but it was just so big I couldn't contain it all on one tiny table in the basement.
So because you said you laid it out and then you had to go buy more fabric. Like, did it stay there, or like did you pack because you?
Well,
dimmered
I
it?
put all the stickers on. So like this says G2 and G3. So like I put all the stickers on and then put them all on a stack so I know what order they would be
okay.
in. So, but most of the time it was just out.
And took them with you, right? Took your stack with you?
Nope.
Not back into the list? Wow.
Anybody else have anything? Yep.
Are any of your botanical illustrations from something other than the Chewonki experience?
Yeah. So the Big Tooth Aspen is something I did this fall, as well as this one, that one. I did all the ginkgos. I didn't see any ginkgos when I was at Chewonki, so that's all from just this past fall. That fern over there is from this past fall, but a lot of things were inspired by my time there.
First of all, let me just say this is an amazing conference.
It's her grandfather's.
But you've told us a lot about the process of making a quilt, but you've also created a work of art. And I'm wondering if you do see it that way, and if when you look at it, what you see of yourself and the world as you look at it.
I definitely, when I look at it, it fills me with so much pride for having made something. I find it kind of incredible, to be honest, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm just really proud of myself for having made this. And sometimes I wonder if I don't even want to put it on my bed because I don't want anything to happen to it. And like I'm definitely going to take it to college, but like I'm gonna like protect it with my life because I just put so much work into this and so much time, and I definitely do see it as a work of art. Yes.
Do you see it as being something that like you could make more and like sell to me?
I'm actually probably going to print a lot more of my block print fabric and probably print it on t-shirts. So that might be for sale, but I mean I can make little mini ones.
Yeah, like handkerchiefs?
Exactly.
Okay.
I have just one observation. It was interesting to me, Ellie, as you talked about this, in saying that you like things that are improvisational and that you like the process, kind of like the G-Zen quilts, where you could just sort of work your way outward.
Mm-hmm.
But then you really honed it in and you went very tight mathematical,
Yeah.
getting these squares just right.
Yeah, it was super mathy, trying to get everything just right. And if something was just a tiny bit under 12 and a half by 12 and a half, I was like, nope, gotta add like another foot of fabric so I can cut out 12 and a half exactly.
I mean, it seems interesting to me just that that you didn't gravitate towards that, but that's how you pull it all together.
Yeah. And that actually was a big learning experience for me, and learning how to be precise and learning how to really make sure everything came together correctly was really fun.
Yeah, well, I think that just says a lot about you because you talk so much about wanting to go into a science field and wanting to, do something as a career with science, but I think with this project you've shown that you are so in touch with both like your logical, your mathematical, your strategic side, and your very creative, very, free-flowing artistic side. So I think that says a lot about you as a person and you going forward into your career and the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to benefit me in the future, being able to have this as kind of a reminder that I do have that inside of me and I don't have to focus all of my life into more logical, straight line kind of things.
Hear, hear. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Can we walk by the quilt before we head out?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.